All right, Andrew, I
How's
have
it
to
going?
start off. I have to start off and tell you, I've been reporting for over 15 years now, and I have talked to many people that have inspired me and that I have loved, but there has never been a moment like this for me.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
I I feel like not just me, but I speak on behalf of so many. And I know just even within my circle, my family, my friends, I told them, yesterday that I'm going to be talking to you. And I'm like, I have to be here to represent their emotions and their love and commitment to you too.
I
So
love that. Well, tell them thank you for me.
this means the world. Yeah. So if I fangirl out on you, I will do my absolute best to remain cool. I'm doing my best here right now.
It's all good. I really appreciate it. Thanks for
Really.
thank you for that.
Well, thank you for being such an inspiration. You are, to me, for, I've grown up with you, and I feel like your words and your lyrics and your music and your story and everything has kind of, like I said, it's been so many chapters in my own life that you've kind of carried me through, and so many others. And so, yeah, and I can't thank you enough for that. So, okay, I'll stop you.
Thanks for being on the ride with me.
Thank you. So I heard Stars. I love it. I watched the music video a few times. Can you tell me the story behind that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because that song was written in 2019
Mhm.
when we thought we were about to start making a record, and obviously you can figure what happened after that. The path diverged for a moment. You know, the song was sort of born out of this almost comical situation. It sounds like you're from Southern California, so you might be familiar with the Swallows Inn in San Juan Capistrano. So, um, you know, my wife and I and a bunch of our friends ended up in the Swallows at the end of like a night, like hitting the town kind of thing, and you know, probably had an extra drink in me that I shouldn't have, and my wife wanted me to join her on the dance floor at the Swallows, and you can imagine fashion just from a fashion standpoint. I'm an ill fit at the Swallows Inn, and
Right.
she wanted me to get on the dance floor with whatever country band was playing, and I was like feeling very self conscious, and I just was like, I don't want to dance tonight, and she got really bummed at me, and it kind of turned, like how these things happen. It's like kind of turned into like a little more of a fight than it really needed to be, and we kind of like left, kind of huffing and puffing, and I just sort of woke up. I sort of woke up in the morning with these, like with this batch of lyrics, which was this idea of these silly things we get into with the people that we love, but we love them anyway, and we're lucky to be loved even when we do so the dumb shit like not getting on the dance floor with your beautiful partner. You know what I mean? And I had this session with this amazing writer, a guy named Sammy Whitty, that day, and we got in and we sort of started building this track in the studio, and I latched onto that story as the jumping off point, and I'd had this lyric sort of that had been traveling with me for a while. The stars that fell for you left holes in my roof, which I didn't even really know what it meant, but I just loved it. And I got through the verse and we got to that chorus, and it just was like magic. It was like, oh my God, like it just exploded. And I remember being in the room with Sammy, and we were just like high fiving, and we are like, oh my God, we got it, and we finished the demo of the song in like a day and a half. And I'd been sitting on it for 2+ years, 3 years almost, and had just been dying to actually get it done, and ended up in the studio with my crew that has been recording this record with me, and they just knocked it out of the park. It sounds like it feels, and like the words felt to me when I was writing them, and I'm super proud of it.
Now, what about that music video? Your ideas behind that?
Well, I admittedly on the art front, I've like been taking my cues from some more like sort of psychedelic abstract visual artists, and came across Netta, who directed the video, and was just like, she was just right in that wheelhouse. She had done a couple of videos that were like that kind of piecemeal collage, vibe, and I hadn't really done anything like that before. And my goal with this album, especially since it's been so long since I've put out a record, is like I just want it to feel like something new, like something I haven't done before. And I feel like the songs and the production, in a lot of ways, they feel really fresh and like a new sort of perspective for me, sonically. And I wanted to represent that visually. Yeah, Etta was like such a great collaborator. She really kind of mined, I think, some of my visual language and art from past years. And there's all these Easter eggs throughout the video. The duck, and like there's a visual of my tattoo that's for my wife and my daughter. Like all these things that she like just so thoughtfully kind of blended into that sort of acid trip of a music video.
Or as soon as I saw the duck, I was like, "Hey!"
Yeah, she nailed it. Yeah, it was fun. It was like scary to turn over that much control, because it really was. I shot on a green screen, and then we just had a conversation, and we did a first edit, and I was like, I want it to be trippier. Like I wanted to just like, and she signed up for it. She just, every next edit that came back was just more wild. And I feel like weirdly, but it still felt like it captured the emotion of the video while being fun, which I want everything around this record to feel like fun, even if they're dealing with heavier topics,
Yeah, that's one thing that I have to thank you, because during 2020, it was such a difficult time for all of us, and you let us into your home. You did these live streams. It made the days that just seemed like, are we ever going to see a live show again?
Yeah.
Are we ever going to be together again? All of that, you made it easier. You helped us swim through the pandemic with you. And like I said, in feeling that sense of normalcy with you.
They were, it was as much for me as it was for everybody else. I think we were all in the same boat, and I think, for me, when things are difficult, my escape is always music or art or some form of creating and finding community, and so I remember going live on that first one. I was more nervous to do those live streams than I was to do even like my regular show, because it's like you don't really have that feedback. You see the little hearts or the little comments, but it's it's on a screen this big, and I'm like, and so I always like sort of rely on that back and forth, but I would finish the shows and I would go back through and see the way that people were engaging and just the sheer volume of people that were showing up for those things. And it was like, okay, this is what we should be doing, just finding ways to connect if we can't be physically in each other's space like we would have been,
Yeah, it was an act of service, because even then you had done the, what they call them, the drive-ins.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember like the drive-in show too. And, it's just like this, like you kind of, I would think for your fans, you kind of carried us through, because then here you are now, you're back, you're live, we're all together. I was there New Year's 2016, spent New Year's with you at House of
Night. That was
amazing.
Yeah, that was so fun. It was like a Jack's Mannequin reunion, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was so much fun. We all had so much fun that night. It was just like, yeah, that was a beautiful evening.
For me, my brother and sister are always saying like that it was almost like a rebirth night for us, because it's like you kicked off so many things that year, I think, that had happened in our lives that was like a turning point. And so we always kind of talk about that evening. So as soon as the House of Blues meet and greet VIP came out to see you, my sister was on it within 10 minutes. Got it. So we will be seeing you.
Love it. I'm so excited for that show. It's gonna be like a nice homecoming after being gone for the last couple months.
Yeah, and does it are you, because I know that this is your 40th birthday.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? What is this milestone for you?
In a weird way, I think it's like less about the birthday and more about this crossing into, having spent half of my life making music professionally, and and kind of, speaking to what you said earlier, this idea of like how in a lot of ways there are so many fans that have been like committed and followed me through like, and I've not made myself the easiest person to follow. If you like consider, it's like, I mean, I've been writing this music, but I've changed my name, 3 times over the course of this 20 years. Um, and still miraculously people have chosen to continue to walk down that road with me, and I think so. Coming up to 40, it's like, wow, like this is a new chapter. And so many people have been along for this whole ride, and so I think there's a handful of things. It's one, this idea like that the last few years really gave me a chance as I saw this birthday coming up, and dare I say, was able to use the pandemic as a way to do a lot of soul searching. I wrote the book. I think I mended a lot of fences with people that weren't properly mended, if that makes sense. And tried really hard as I got to making this record and got to this birthday to have what I made be about reflection, but also the future, clearing the deck of I think whatever heaviness was left over from growing up or from being sick or any of these traumas that we all encounter in our lives, and I kind of have been trying to use the birthday as like, as a target. Like, how can I step into 40 feeling like as many of these loose threads are tied up so that I can, live as peacefully and freely as possible, and I think you'll hear that in the music as it sort of kind of starts coming out one by one. But, to me, I've never been a guy who's been too concerned about getting older. I think, my concern is always about staying inspired, and not carrying too much weight from the past, if at all possible, and so it's been a good catalyst to sort of, try and make sure that I'm heading in the right direction, I guess, if that makes sense.
Well, what would you say then? Because I recently was just listening to Classic Love Line. And, and Something Corporate was on there, and you were such a baby. And it's amazing to hear because it's just this, again, like for me, I've heard you throughout the years. I've seen all your chapters. I've seen all the name changes. I've seen you go, through cancer. I've seen you do amazing things with your foundation that I would love to hear more about. But just to see it and then to hear it, and I'm like, but that was like yesterday. When you hear like the Love Line, it's like it was still like yesterday.
Oh my God, I was always so nervous to sit with those guys. Like I was always just felt so out of my depth, between Dr. Drew with his sort of, high level whatever, and Adam Carolla just like so funny. I just remember like how are me and my bandmates equipped to handle any of these calls? Like probably most of us had just had sex for the first time, and we're like fielding calls about like the raunchiest shit. Like it's like, it's pretty. It was pretty wild. There were a couple of times I went on that show. There, like as I got older, I think I did one with Bobby from Jack's Manic, and I think we went on, and Dr. Drew said something where we were just like, "Dude, you're wrong." Like it was like something about somebody fishing. Like like a girlfriend fishing through her boyfriend's emails or text messages, and we were like, "You can't do that. And why shouldn't she be able to? He shouldn't have anything to hide." I was like, "That's not a good therapist advice. Like, I don't know what you're talking about." But I'm on a tangent here, but
it's like you grew into more wisdom there.
Totally, yeah. Well, I was like, I remember I was like, I think I'm going to challenge Dr. Drew on this one.
This is happening.
It was so funny. I mean, he like the last couple of times I saw him, it was discovered when I was in treatment when I was sick that my oncologist and Dr. Drew went to undergrad together, and so like they knew each other and were friends, and so it became this like like my oncologist, who was also this very like amazing man, but like very upstanding and like proper. He's like, "Tell Mr. Pinsky I say hello." It was always a very funny thing, that chapter.
So how would you say the rock star dream has changed from then to now for you?
You know, it's funny. I mean, like when I was a kid, I think obviously there was like the more uh, sort of like glamorous expectation of what it might be to do this for a living, right? You know, like it was a very like I grew up on the MTV generation and like watching like Motley Crue videos, and you know what I mean. Like there was sort of an expectation, even like you know in high school, like in the sort of TRL era of like what we perceived as rock stardom might be. Uh, you know, I think the thing for me is I've always just liked the work, and I'm lucky for that because it turns out this is a much harder job, albeit a super rewarding one. But you know, to do this for as long as I've done it has required an immense amount of willingness to sort of grow and change and challenge myself and collaborate with new people and you know and keep myself accountable to like the idea that what I do is like for me first, right? I write songs because I love it, but it is also like it's a mode of connection, right? And to connect to people, you have to be relevant, you know. But you could also you don't want to chase being relevant either, right? So there's like you have to steer into these things, and so I mean I don't think I ever expected I don't think I ever expected the work, but I think how my perception of like whatever this like rock star title is changed was just that I realized that it's kind of fake, you know, like that thing maybe exists on some level for people at this like, you know, ultimate peak. For me, I've had a lot of success, but it's really always been an outcropping of like how hard I've been willing to work and lean into keeping myself, you know, accountable to evolving, you know, and I don't think I expected that, but I actually have found that to be the most rewarding part of what I do. You know, this is not a guaranteed position I hold. You know, there's always going to be people out there making great music, and you have to stay competitive, but you have to do it in a way that has integrity. And that's like that's it's a challenge, and some days it's harder than others for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And do you have any sort of ultimate, because your career has continued to expand in music, and you know you're also in movies and you're being featured in so many different things, and the name Andrew McMahon is starting to become this like household. I know for me it's like duh, it's a household name, but like internationally a household name. But do you have a any sort of like other major music goals that you want to see, or do you feel at this point content with where you've been and kind of that hope of what's next?
I mean, look, it's so hard. I mean, look, I always want my music to reach more people. I think there is always a hunger in me to say like, well, I have this amazing fan base. How do we grow it? You know, and I think that's really, it's as simple as that. It's not like, oh, I want a Grammy award, or oh, I want, you know, to be on you know on the TV or in a movie. You know, it's not like it's more of I mean, it's not abstract. It's more concrete, I suppose. It's like I'm not looking for trophies. I just want people in the seats. You know, I just want ears on the songs. You know, I do this because I really think of it as my way to plug in to the universe. You know, it's like what I have to offer. And the more people that are listening and the more people that are coming to the shows, like in general, the happier I am, you know, because that means it's working. That means that the song that I wrote touched somebody enough to get them motivated to be a part of this like beautiful community of fans that I've been lucky enough to be, you know, on stage in front of for all these years. So that's really it. It's about each record finding somebody who didn't know anything about where I came from, hearing one of these new songs and saying like, oh, I want to know more about that, you know, and maybe, and then going and digging back and realizing there's a deep catalog of songs and bands and history. And that, I think that's always my goal.
Great. Wonderful. Well, I'm, you know, I follow the Dear Jack Foundation, and I'm such a supporter of it. I am amazed by this continuation of, like, I just feel like every time I go on there, I see something even more inspiring. You know, your Instagram and Facebook are always bringing faces forward, and saying, you know, in almost a celebratory way, you know, of an embrace. Why is that important to you to do that? Give this almost these highlights or shout outs of these people?
Well, I think the challenge, I think, with any nonprofit work and with trying to advocate for especially underrepresented people, which adolescents and young adults are incredibly underrepresented in the world of cancer. You know, you hear a lot about pediatric cancer, and for good reason, you know, but and then you hear a lot about specific disease sets and things like that. You know, for us, a part of the reason that we really make a point when we make contact with people who are going to be a part of our programs, and we ask them if they're willing to share a bit of who they are, so we can show people who they are, and so people understand that there are real pieces. One, that when they donate, that they're going to help make their day better and help make their journey better, but also so there's an understanding that there is this whole world of young people who get sick. You know, I never thought at 22 I was going to have cancer, and almost nobody in their 20s and 30s thinks they're going to be diagnosed with cancer. You know, I think we get more realistic as we get older, that there are these things that are going to come for us, you know, and in turn there are support groups, and there's a robust system of advocacy and support for people on either side of this demographic. But when you're in your 20s and 30s, you know, you think you're going to be starting your family or getting your first job or growing your career, or, you know, any of these number of very optimistic sort of things. And what we try to do is say, like, look, this is a real thing that happens to young people, and they need support and they need advocacy. And that's what we aim to do with the foundation, is you know, to normalize the experience, which is very unique. There's a lot of mental health challenges that go along with being a young person with cancer. There's a lot of career difficulties, fertility problems. There's all sorts of, it's a whole raft of difficulties that are unique to this subset of cancer patients, as well as survivors. And we want to shine a light on that, so people come to our cause and say, how do we help you reach more of these people every year?
Are there any specific milestones that you feel like, oh, this moment happened with the foundation? Or,
well, I mean, we've sustained, you know, 8 years of really solid growth since I moved from just being a foundation that, you know, effectively doles out our earnings to other charities, to where we actually started our first set of programs. And every year we've grown our programs. You know, I think, you know, for me, one of the biggest milestones is that we survived COVID, that we were able to keep the lights on at the foundation, and that we're back to full capacity in all of our programs. We're hosting multiple retreats a year for survivors and their partners to get, you know, a healthy footing after having gone through a diagnosis and a treatment and entering remission. We're serving over 100 people every year with our wish granting program called the Life List. But I think a huge milestone is we just partnered with an amazing organization called Find Your Anchor. They're primarily a suicide prevention charity. They do amazing work. They create these, it's like a wellness box, and it has resources in it. And again, I found them through a friend. You know, we become fans of each other's organizations, and they helped us pioneer a wellness box for young adult cancer patients who've just found themselves in treatment and are looking for resources. So I think we printed our first set of 500 of those boxes. They go out to everybody who participates in our programs. They also now were able to, beyond just our program capacity, if anybody reaches out to Dear Jack Foundation and has somebody in their life, or if they just receive a diagnosis, we send one of these boxes to, whether it's their hospital, their house, anywhere. And in it, there are, simple things like, a deck of cards that just gives you little things that you can look forward to while you're in treatment, lists of resources and places that you can reach out to if you're struggling with any mental health difficulties, or if you're just looking for somebody to talk to who might be going through the same thing. And I'm super proud of that. That's a program that we just started in the last few months.
Wow. Well, Andrew, I don't know how you maintain to just be this inspiration all the time. Is there anything that inspires you, like, to continue to be an inspiration?
Well, I think, specifically speaking to this topic, I see so many young people and their families daily, especially when I'm on the road, but, who went through what I went through or are going through what I went through. And for me, the fact that I'm still here, 17 years later, and able to do what I love and pursue my passion, I get inspired by seeing them, because it could have worked out very differently for me, so I try as best I can. It's hard sometimes, you get caught up in the day to day, and I believe me, I get under it just like everybody else, but I'm very fortunate to have this little, these reminders daily of how different my life could have been, and daily, my inspiration comes from, I have an amazing family. I have an 8-year-old daughter who's just incredible. And my wife is, after this first 8 years of motherhood, is getting her master's degree. And so, like, every day I'm like, just watching her in this academic pursuit and just going, like, give me knowledge. I skipped college. Like, can I get some information here? And they're huge sources of inspiration for me too.
What is she getting her master's in?
She's in an American Studies program right now. So it's the history of our nation through the eyes of culture from the last 200 plus years. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You McMahons, I tell you. Keep going.
We're very lucky. So we try and stay sharp, so we can keep doing what we love.
Well, I love it. I know that I have to let you go. You're actually, I see you're sitting at a venue ready to rock.
Lit Backstage.
All right. Well, thank you again. I will see you on your birthday.
I'll see you there.
All right. Happy birthday. Have fun tonight.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the talk.
Thank you. All right. Bye, Andrew.